today. Yesterday I just left the meeting, so the recording kept on continuing till what? 3.5 hours, 4 hours. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Okay, so let us start then. Consolidation of financial statements. Okay, so I am not just going to teach you the plain format of consolidation. Okay, I don't want you guys to mug up the format of consolidation. So I'll tell you step by step what we are supposed to do. Okay, what is the logic for making the consolidation? Okay, so let us say we have 3-4 companies in the same group. Okay, we have 3 to 4 companies in the same group. Now, how to prepare a consolidated balance sheet? Consolidated means what? One single balance sheet, okay, for all the companies. Okay, one single balance sheet for all the companies. Okay, so let us see. Step one. Step one is decide the status between the two companies. Okay, so let us say there are 4 companies. Okay, one is a parent company and it is making investment in all the other companies. Okay, there's one main company, ultimate parent company, and it is going to make what? Investment in all other companies. Okay, so there can be 2 relations. Okay, one can be a parent company and subsidiary company relationship, and one can be parent company and associate company relationship. Okay, so before you start any problem, this is what you have to see, that which companies are parent and subsidiary and which companies are parent and associate companies. Okay, that is the first thing you will do. Okay, so this status is also known as group structure. Okay, what is the structure of the group? Within the same group of companies, which is a parent company, which is a subsidiary company, which is an associate company. Okay, so now how will we decide that? You guys already know that we discussed that yesterday. It will depend upon how much percent of ordinary share capital, how much percent of equity capital the parent company is going to hold. Okay, so you guys know, right? For a company to be treated as parent and subsidiary, how much should be the percentage holding? Yesterday we talked about it.
It should be more than 50%.
Correct. It should be more than 50%. More than half. Correct. So if it is more than 50%, the relationship is what? Between a parent company and a subsidiary company. Correct. Similarly, what is an associate? I'll explain that also. Okay, what is an associate? I'll explain that as well. So now, if this percentage is not given, okay, ACCA guys generally will not give you the percentage. How much is the percentage holding? They will not give you. So how will you calculate? Okay, you will not calculate dependent upon the equity share capital, but you will calculate dependent upon the number of equity shares that the parent company is going to hold. Okay, so what is the number of shares the parent company holds out of the total number of shares of subsidiary company? Okay, so for example, Y company has total number of shares of, let us say, 1 lakh. Okay, and the parent company, okay, X company holds around, let us say, 60,000 shares. So now that will be what? 60,000 shares divided by 1 lakh shares, right? So that is 60% holding. Okay, so you have to look in the balance sheet. Okay, in the statement of financial position, you will have to find whether it is a parent and subsidiary or parent and associate. Okay, so working note 1 is the group structure. Once you find out the percentage holding, if it is more than 50%, it will be a subsidiary company. Okay, and it is 20 to 50%, it will be an associate company. Okay, now sometimes it is 20%, sometimes it is 30%. I'll explain that later. Okay, but the general concept is 20 to 50% holding becomes an associate, and more than 50% holding becomes a subsidiary. Okay, now once you have found this, also obviously we'll look for what? We'll look for IFRS 10, the concept of control while deciding, that we saw yesterday. Control has 3 elements. What are the 3 elements? Tell me. As per IFRS 10.
Power over the investee.
Correct. Power over the investee. Then
right to variable returns.
Right to variable returns. Okay, and
ability to use the power.
Correct. Ability to use the power. Okay, so we'll look at that also, whether control is established or not. If control is established, then obviously it is a subsidiary company or an associate company. Okay, but in F9 everywhere we'll assume that control has been established. Okay, if it is not specifically given, we'll assume that control has been established. Okay, so what is the first step? I want to know in the group which is the parent company, which is the subsidiary company, and which is the associate company. Now once you find that out, pay attention, huh? This is very important. If it is holding and subsidiary company, I will prepare a full consolidation. Okay, all assets and liabilities of parent company plus all assets and liabilities of subsidiary company except for equity and reserves. Why we will not take that? I'll come back to it later. Okay, so always remember, if it is between holding company and subsidiary company, okay, if the balance sheet is between holding company and subsidiary company, you will go for full consolidation. Okay, you will go for full consolidation, that is you will consolidate all assets and liabilities of subsidiary company except for equity and reserves. But if it is holding an associate company, okay, you will show all assets and liabilities of parent company. You will show all the assets and liabilities of parent company, but you will not show assets and liabilities of associate company. Okay, because associate is not consolidated in the balance sheet. For associate, we will only show how much is the investment in the associate. Correct, we'll just show how much we have invested in the associate. We will not consolidate the liabilities of associate, will not consolidate the assets of associate, because we are not having the ownership of the associate, we are just investing in the associate. Okay, so that is why the first part is important. Find out the group structure. There you will get the idea how much to consolidate. Okay, if it is a holding and subsidiary, go for full consolidation. Okay, if it is holding and associate, do not go for full consolidation, only consolidate for investment of the associate. Okay, till here clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are not going to do entire problem today, but I will give parts of the problem, okay, and you will tell me now. So this is what your example will look like. This is what your example will look like. Okay, that there are three companies in the group, Borough, High, and Street. Okay, three companies in the group. They have not given you what is the status of the companies. Okay, now you guys will tell me what is the status between Borough, High, and Street looking at the example. We need to find out only 2 or 3 things. What are the 2-3 things we are going to find out?
The group structure.
Group structure. So how much percentage a company is holding in another companies? Okay, how much percentage a company is holding in another company? So which company is making investment? Tell me.
Borrow is making the investment.
Correct. In the company Borrow. Okay, in the company Borrow, the investment is there. Correct. Investment of 1,21,000 is there in this company. So obviously Borrow whatever, the Borrow company is making an investment. How is the investment made? It is given here. On 1st July so and so, Borrow purchased 45,000 shares in High. Borrow purchased 45,000 shares in High for an amount of 1 lakh. And Borrow also purchased 10,000 shares in Street for 21,000. Means we have to look between the relationship between Borrow and High. Okay, one relationship will be between Borrow and High, and another relationship will be between what? It will be between Borrow and
Relationship. Okay.
correct. So now see, yeah, just a second. Now see what we are going to do. Okay, we are going to see how much shares Borrow has brought out of the total shares of high. Okay. Now look at the liability side of high. Look at the liability side of high. Equity share $1 shares amounting to 75,000. $1 share amounting to 75,000 means obviously how many shares are there? 75,000 shares are there, correct? 75,000 shares. Out of that, so high company has 75,000 shares. High company has 75,000 shares. Out of that, how much has Burrow purchased? 45,000 shares. So pay attention, guys. We are not going to compare the amounts. We are not going to compare the amounts. We are going to compare the number of shares. Okay. So who is making investment? Look in the investment. Look in the asset side in the under investment. Burrow is making the investment. How much investment Burrow is making? They will give in the problem. So Burrow is purchased 45,000 shares in high. Means what? The total shares of high is 75,000. So out of 75,000 shares, Burrow has purchased how much? 45,000 shares. Okay. And again, this is also $1 capital. $1 capital amounting to 35,000. Means what? How many shares? 35,000 shares. Right? 35,000 shares. So Street company has a total of 35,000 shares. Burrow is purchasing how much? Burrow is purchasing 10,500 shares out of 35,000. Correct? So now see what I have compared. I have compared the investment made by Burrow. I have compared the investment made by Burrow against what? Against the equity shares. But don't compare between the amounts. Always compare between the number of shares. Okay. So percentage holding in high. Burrow has hold how much? Burrow has held how much? It has held 45,000 shares
60%.
out of 75,000 shares. So Burrow has hold
60%.
correct 60%. Correct. If it is 60% means what? It is more than 50%.
Yes.
Correct. So Burrow and high will have a relationship of holding company and
subsidiary.
Correct. We can call it as holding subsidiary. We can call it as parent and subsidiary. We can also call it as parent and NCI. Okay. What is NCI? I'll come back to it later. Similarly, now calculate for Burrow and Street. Okay. Burrow has held
30%.
correct.
30%.
Burrow has held 10,500 shares out of 35,000. So 10,500 out of 35,000. So that is what? 30% holding. So the relationship between Burrow and Street will be what? Will be that of parent company and associate company. Now guys pay attention. When I make a consolidated balance sheet, okay, I'll show this amount, I'll show this amount, correct? But I will not show this amount. When I prepare consolidated assets, let us say I prepare consolidation of property, plant and equipment. Okay, what we have learned that consolidation of parent and subsidiary will be completely appearing in the balance sheet. Okay, but consolidation of the street company of the associate will not appear. Okay, similarly inventories, what will happen? 22,000 will appear, 30,000 will appear, and this 15,000 will not appear. Okay, so that is what we mean by consolidation. We have to see what all we need to consolidate. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, no one has any problem now till here. This is very important. If you get this wrong, if you get the working note one wrong, okay, you will never understand how much to what all figures to consolidate. Okay. So your group structure, see how the group structure appears. Between Burrow and high, in the same example, between Burrow and high, 60% is majority holding. Here we saw between Burrow and high, 60% is majority holding, right? So we'll say 60% is majority holding. Means what? Burrow is controlling 60% of high, but remaining 40% will be your minority. Okay, it is called as non-controlling interest. That is your NCI, non-controlling interest. Okay. So your main parent control is 60% and parent does not control the remaining 40%. So this remaining 40% will become non-controlling interest. Okay. Now tell me, guys, tell me, if I am preparing a consolidated balance sheet, should I only show 60% or do I have to show the remaining 40% also?
Only 60%.
No,
So you have
I'll show both.
no,
I'll
Sir,
show
you have to
both
show the
60%
40%
as
also.
60% as your majority, okay, and 40% as a minority, as a liability. I'll have to show in NCI. Okay, so even though we are only holding 60%, but the balance sheet will be for the entire 100%. We'll split the balance sheet into two parts. Okay, we'll show 60% all data, 60% we'll show it as a majority. Okay, and all data 40% will show as non-controlling interest, and that non-controlling interest will be shown as a separate liability. Okay, it will be shown as a separate liability. Okay, so in the consolidated balance sheet, we show profits of both. Parent company profits also will show, and non-controlling interest profits also we will show. Okay, so our balance sheet, the profits in our balance sheet will be split into two parts. Okay, 60% and your 40%. Is this clear to everyone?
So can you please explain again why NCI will be a liability?
Okay, see, now for example, I am purchasing 60% shares of your company, correct? So I control your company. Okay, so
Yes,
now
sir.
between your company and my company, we will have only one single balance sheet. Correct?
Yes,
Now
sir.
between
Yes, sir.
to the income tax department, between your company and my company, we'll only have one single balance sheet. Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
my company's assets and liabilities will appear 100%.
Sir.
Correct, but
Yes, sir.
your company's assets and liabilities should also appear 100%. Okay, but how I will show it? I'll show it as my company's entire balance sheet. Correct, and after acquisition, your 60%. So for example, after acquisition, our company, sorry, after acquisition, your company, okay, after acquisition, your company has made a profit of 1 lakh. Okay, doesn't it mean 60% of that profit you will give it to me?
Yes, sir.
Correct,
Yes, sir.
60% of your profit you will give it to me. So that 60% should be shown in my balance sheet, and remaining
Yes, sir.
40% should be shown in your balance sheet.
Yes, sir.
Now when we combine both the balance sheet, what will happen? My 60% will also appear and your 40% will also appear. Correct, but
Yes.
since your 40% does not belong to my company, okay, I show it as a liability.
Okay, sir. Here.
Okay, very clear now,
Yes, sir.
everyone. What is non-controlling interest?
there is a difference between the control and the non-controlling and control interest, right?
Of course, now because 60% is what we control, 40% is what we do not control. If we are not controlling, it becomes non-controlling interest.
No, so what the major 3 points that we have for control? Okay, if will that decide on upon the controlling interest and non-controlling interest, or
No.
this is
Your
some
percentage holding decides. First, you establish that there is a control. Okay. First, you establish that there is a control. Then you decide how much is the control. So, as in our problem, how much is the control? 60% is our control, right? Okay.
yes,
So,
sir.
60% is the control means what? 60% is part of our company. So if I'm acquiring your company, okay, 60% of your profits will be now treated as my own profits. Okay, and the remaining 40% of your profits will be your profits. I have no say in those profits. If I do not have a say in those profits, it is not part of my balance sheet. Correct, but due to consolidation, I am showing it together. If it is not part of my balance sheet, it will be what? It will be a liability. I don't own that 40% profits, So if I don't own it, okay, it is profits of someone else. So it is a liability for me. Clear?
Understood.
Okay. Now we have established that it is a group structure. So we'll show all liabilities of subsidiary company, all assets and liabilities of subsidiary company except for equity and reserves. Okay. Why we don't show equity and reserves? I'll come to that in the next working model. Now, what is the group structure between Burrow and Street? Burrow is holding 30%. Burrow is only holding 30%. So Street is just an associate. It is just like a normal investment. Okay. So there is no control. If there is no control, there is no concept of NCI. Okay. There is no concept of NCI. So in the consolidated balance sheet, we will not show assets and liabilities of associate company. We will not show assets and liability of associate company. We will only show how much investment my parent company has made in the associate. That's it. Okay. So now, for example, if the associate earns 1 lakh of profits, if the associate earns 1 lakh of profits, how much will I show in my balance sheet?
30.
30,000, 30%, correct? 30,000 I'll show in my balance sheet. And tell me, remaining 70,000 should I show in my balance sheet?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No. Why?
No.
Why? Because associate consolidation is not going to be there. Associate consolidation is not going to be there. So I cannot show the remaining 70% as a non-controlling interest. Okay. So subsidiaries remaining profit also I'll have to show. But associates remaining profit I cannot show because I do not control an associate. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is your step one. Okay, that is your step one, which will not be given in the problem. You have to understand what is a subsidiary, what is an associate. Okay, and out of subsidiary, what all we will consolidate, and out of associate, what all we will consolidate. Okay. Now, so once we have decided between subsidiary and associate, now step two. Let us focus only on subsidiary right now. Okay, because consolidation is of subsidiary, right? Consolidation is of subsidiary. Associate, we will not consolidate the entire associate. So now let us focus only on parent company and subsidiary company. Let us focus only on parent company and subsidiary company as of now. So once we have decided the status of all the companies in the group, now step two is what? Calculate whether we have gained or lost on making the investment in the subsidiary company. Correct? So I have to decide that I have purchased 60% of shares of subsidiary. Okay. So for that I have paid some amount. Correct? For purchasing 60% shares, I have paid some amount. Okay. So by paying that amount, have I gained or lost on my investment? Okay, the investment that I have made in subsidiary, have I gained or lost on that investment is what we have to see. Okay, so for example, here in our example, Burrow purchased 45,000 shares in High for 1 lakh. Correct, Burrow purchased 45,000 shares. That is, Burrow purchased 60% shares for $1 lakh, $100,000. Okay. So how much I have paid for High? I have paid 100,000 for the 60% shares. Okay, I have paid 100,000 for the 60% shares. Correct. But for remaining 40% also, I'll have to calculate what is the value of the remaining 40%. Because as I said, we will consolidate both the controlling part and the non-controlling part. Okay. So now let us take an example. So for this, we'll prepare working note 2 and 3. We'll prepare working note 2 and 3. So see how this is calculated. I'll give a numerical example also. I'll give a numerical example. Gain or loss to the company is calculated as follows. Okay. Fair value of purchase consideration given by parent company for shares acquired. So in our example of Burrow, High and Street, okay, Burrow purchased how much? Burrow purchased 45,000 shares for 1 lakh, correct? So what is the fair value of purchase consideration? Is 1 lakh given by parent company to subsidiary company. Okay. So 1 lakh is the fair value of consideration given by parent company to the subsidiary company. In that, so this is only 60% value. This is only the 60% value. For 60% shares, so for 60% shares, how much we are giving? We are giving $1 lakh. But in the balance sheet, we have to show 100% calculation. So in that, we'll add for the remaining 40%, what is the fair value? For the remaining 40% shares, what is the fair value? Okay. So that will give me what? That will give me total value of subsidiary company in the hands of parent company. Okay, that will give me total value of subsidiary company in the hands of parent company. So I have to show how much I have actually purchased for 60% shares, how much I have actually paid, correct? Plus for the remaining 40%, what is the market value of those 40% shares? Okay, how to do that? We'll see. I'll take a numerical example. Okay, so the total of these two will give me what? Value of subsidiary company recorded by the parent company. Okay, so this is the actual value we are going to pay. We are going to pay from our books of accounts point of view, from our balance sheet point of view, is the total amount we are going to pay to the subsidiary company. Now we'll compare this amount. This amount will compare with what? It will be compared with what was the actual value of the subsidiary company on that date. Okay, we'll compare this amount, this 60 plus 40%. We'll compare this amount with the actual value of subsidiary company on that date. It will give me what? It will give me goodwill or capital reserve. Okay, so in step two, we have to compare between two things. In step two, we are comparing between two things. Okay, value of the subsidiary company. Okay, from the point of view of parent company, it will be compared with what? It will be compared with the actual value of subsidiary company on the date of acquisition. So this is a little bit confusing. That's why I'll take a numerical example. Now this is a little bit confusing. So I'll take a numerical example for this gain or loss. Okay. Let me open an Excel sheet. So we are talking just about parent company and subsidiary company. We are just talking about parent company and subsidiary company. So Burrow company has purchased 45,000 shares out of 75,000 shares of High company for $100,000. Okay. The market value of shares, of High company where let us say how much is 30,000 now. So let us say it is $1.75 per share. Market value means fair value. Okay. Now value, the actual value of subsidiary company, or let us say the actual value of High company on the date of acquisition, was 1,75,000, or let us take lesser value, 1,20,000. Okay, has the Burrow company gained or lost due to acquisition? Okay, will you try and answer this question? Are yes or no? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Try this question. Try solving this question. So I'll just write the formula again. I'll just write the formula again. Fair value of purchase consideration plus fair value of NCI. Okay. And whatever the amount gives it, whatever we get the amount, that amount less actual value of subsidiary company on date of acquisition. Correct. That will give me goodwill or capital reserve. When to call it goodwill, when to call it capital reserve, I'll tell you. Try this then.
Sir, 32,500.
Okay, 32,500 gain or loss?
So gain.
Loss.
Sorry, loss.
Loss. Okay. So
Loss.
if it is a loss, should we call it as goodwill or capital reserve?
Capital reserve.
Okay. Yes. What about the others? What is the amount? Okay, so let us go step by step. I think there is still a bit of confusion. Let us go step by step. What is the fair value of purchase consideration? How much are we paying actually for purchasing 45,000 shares?
1 lakh.
$100,000.
Correct. So for purchasing 45,000 shares, we are paying how much? We are paying 100,000. They have given it. They have given it in the problem. Correct. But we are only considered 45,000 out of 75,000. Okay. We are only considered 45,000 shares out of 75,000 shares. So remaining 35,000 shares are NCI, are not controlling interest. Remaining 35,000 shares are NCI. What is the value of that remaining 35,000 shares? We have to take fair value. Fair value means what? Market value. And what is the market value of high company?
61,250.
Remaining 30,000 shares. Na? So remaining 30,000. Remaining 30,000 shares will be at fair value. Fair value means market value. So it is 52,500. Correct. So, sorry, what happened?
It should be 30. Yeah, it's 30. No, sir. Got it.
Because out of 75, we have purchased 45,000 shares. Na? So remaining shares are what? Remaining 30,000 shares are non-controlling interest. Okay. And what is the fair market value? 1.75. So that will be 30,000 into 1.75. Okay. So what is the total amount? Total amount comes out to 152,500. Okay. Total amount that we are payable. So I can call it as payable amount. Correct. I will call it as a payable amount because this is paid. This is actually paid and this is payable. Correct. So total amount is 1,52,500. Okay. Now this 1,52,500 will be compared with what? Will be compared with the actual value of subsidiary company on the date of acquisition. Okay. So what is the actual value of the company? It is given. It is already given 1,20,000. Okay. So we are paying 1,52,500 for a company whose actual value is only 1,20,000. So aren't we paying higher amount? Correct?
Yes, sir.
The company's value was supposed to be only 1,20,000. The company's value was supposed to be only 1,20,000, but we are paying them 1,52,500. So we are paying them extra. That is, we are having a loss of how much? Loss of 1,52,500 minus 1,20,000. 32,500 is the loss to my company. It is a loss to a parent company. Okay, subsidiary was actual value was 1,20,000, but I have paid 1,52,500. So my company is a loss of 32,500. Now loss means what? Loss means goodwill or
Goodwill.
capital reserve. It will be goodwill.
So goodwill.
Correct, because capital reserve is what? It is kind of a profit, right? Capital reserve is kind of a profit. So it is goodwill. So loss means goodwill. Loss means goodwill. Correct. So I will show goodwill of 32,500 in my asset side. I will show goodwill of 32,500 in my asset side. Is this clear to everyone?
So I have a doubt.
Yes.
Okay, so we paid $100,000 for
Correct.
45,000 shares.
Correct.
So sir, if we divide it, we'll get the per share value, right?
Correct.
And then if we multiply with the remaining 30,000 shares, so why can't we do it in that way? And why are we
Okay. So you
multiplying
are
it by
saying that
1.75?
okay, 1 lakh divided by 45,000. Okay, so
Yes, we'll get
2.2.
2.22. Yeah.
Correct. So that was the agreement, na? That was the agreement. See, for example, my company is the parent company, your company is the subsidiary company. Okay. But you are a very famous local company. You are a very famous local company who has what? Who has enough goodwill in the market already. Okay. And what is the market value of your shares? Market value of your shares is 1.75. So actually, when I when I acquire 45,000 shares of your company, I should have paid you how much? I should have paid you 45,000 shares into 1.75. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Correct. I should have paid you 45,000 shares into your current market value of shares 1.75. Okay. But you are a famous company. Okay. You will say we have established our company since last 10 years. Okay. So we want some amount for our goodwill. Correct. We want some amount for our goodwill. So we will not give you shares at $1.75 per share. Okay. For our 45,000 shares, we don't want 1.75, we want 2.22. So for our 45,000 shares, your company, so my company will pay you $1 lakh. So that was the agreement. And that's why my company is having a loss. Na? That's why my company is having loss. Because instead of paying you 1.75, I have paid you 2.22. Instead of paying 1.75, I have paid you $2.22. So obviously I have paid you higher. Okay. And for the
Okay, sir.
remaining
So
share,
the parent.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sir. So for the non-controlling interest, we will take the market value.
Yeah, because I'm not paying you anything, na. For non-controlling interest, I'm not going to acquire those remaining 30,000 shares. Okay. But consolidation IFRS 10 says the non-controlling interest should also be shown in the balance sheet. Okay. So if I'm going to show those remaining 35,000 shares, I'll show them at what? I'll show them at market value and not at face value. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So
So
face value will be
the
$1. Yeah, go ahead.
so the parent company, the consideration they're paying at the moment, as you said, so it's both higher than the market value and the actual value of the
Correct.
company, right? Okay.
Correct. Yes. But sometimes pay attention. Sometimes it can be other way around also. For example, if your company, the company that is going to be acquired, is a loss-making company. Okay. So I am going to acquire a loss-making company. So I'll pay how much? I'll say I'll not pay you 45,000 shares into 1.75. I'll pay you only, let us say, $50,000 for that. Because you're a loss-making company, I'm not going to pay you 45,000 shares into 1.75. Let your current market share value be $1.75 per share. But you are a loss-making company, so I am going to pay you only 50,000. So actually, how much I am going to pay? I'm only paying how much? I'm paying 50,000 divided by 45. Instead of 1.75, I am paying you only 1.11. Now see what happens. The total will be what? Total will be 1,02,500, right? Because for the remaining 30,000, I'll show in the balance sheet at current market value. Okay. So actual payment is 50,000, and for NCI it is payable 52,500. Okay. So the total amount is what? 1,02,500. Okay. And the value of your subsidiary company on date of acquisition was 1,20,000. So the company whose value is 1,20,000, company whose value is 1,20,000, I have paid only 1,02,500. Correct. So I have what? Now I have a gain of that. I'll gain. So the gain for my company, I'm paying less. I'm paying less for your company. So my company will have a gain of 17,500. Okay. If it is a gain, it will become what? It will go in reserves, and I'll show it as a capital reserve, not normal profit and loss. Okay. And it will be shown in the liability side. So 17,500 will be that amount. See if this is clear.
Sir, I have one more doubt.
Yes, go ahead.
So the market value means the amount, the value at the point where we are making the balance sheet, or is it
Market value means MPS, market price per share right now. Correct.
So
and what is
now
the balance
means
sheet value is face value. Balance sheet value is face value. So for example, your company started in 2017. That time face value was $1 per share. Correct. So your share capital will show what? 75,000 shares into $1 per share equal to $75,000. Okay, that is value of 2017. Okay, there was no change after that. No new shares were issued. No one had made any investment. Okay, now in 2020, I am acquiring your company. In 2020, I am acquiring your company. Will your company's share be of $1 right now after 3 years?
no, sir.
Correct. So after 3 years, what is the share value right now? Your right now share value is $1.75. Correct. So I was supposed to pay 45,000 into 1.75. Correct. But then we will see the situation in the market, whether your company is a profitable company or a loss making company. If it is a profitable company, you will not give me for 1.75. You might give me for higher. Okay. And if your company is a loss making company, I will not pay you 1.75. I'll pay you lower. So that they will give in the problem how much that you are paying for those 45,000 shares. Okay.
Yes, sir.
This is very clear to everyone now.
Sir, just one more question. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask.
No, don't
Sir,
be sorry.
Sir, so like if we were to pay at the current market rate also, right? If we paid 45,000 to 1.75, there would still be a goodwill, right? Because if you see the 60% of 120 is lesser.
45,000 into 1.75. So let us say they have agreed that 45,000 shares will be taken at 1.75. Okay, at par. They say that neither you will have profit nor you have loss. We'll take it at par 78,750. Correct. 45,000 into 1.75, and the remaining 30,000 will also be shown into 1.75. Correct. So still, what is the payable amount? The total payable amount still is 1,31,250, and value is 1,20,000. So again, we are going to have what? We are going to pay more. Okay. Now how come we are paying more now? Correct. Because the actual value, this is on date of acquisition. This is actually on the date of acquisition. Okay. This actual value is calculated as per balance sheet. Okay, this actual value is calculated as balance sheet. It is called as net asset of subsidiary company during acquisition. Okay, so that's why that amount might differ from 1,31,250. Okay, how to calculate this net asset? So for example, this 1,20,000 is not given to in the problem. How to calculate that? That also I'll teach. Okay, so that's why these amounts might differ. So even if you are taking the shares at par, even if you are taking all the shares at par, still these two values might differ. Okay, and that's why we need to calculate whether it is a goodwill or capital reserve. Net assets. Net asset means what? Net asset will always be at balance sheet value, na? Net asset will always be at the balance sheet value. Okay, balance sheet value means what? Original value, historical value. Okay, so that balance sheet value will change, will be different from market value. Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's clear now about all this goodwill and capital reserve.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Only
Yes,
3-4 of you are replying. What about the others? Out of 78 participants, only 3 to 4 are replying. Others, you are just
it's
logged in
clear, sir.
and gone away or what? How many of you are actively listening? Just put active in the group chat if you are listening actively. If you are participating actively. Let me just see. So around 19, 20. What about the others? 28, only 20 are actively listening. Okay. So not a good number for your class. Okay. Consolidation, you are taking consolidation too lightly. Okay. I'll give one more example. You guys tell me if it is a gain or loss. Okay. So parent company, let us say P company acquired 50,000 shares of S company, where S company has a share capital amounting to 80,000, amounting to $80,000. Okay, and the face value per share is $0.8. Face value per share is $0.8. So let us say 60,000 or 55,000. I'll take. The current market value of shares of S company is $1.2 per share. $1.2 per share, and the value of net assets of S company on the date of acquisition is, let us say, $1,20,000. $1,20,000. Has P company gained or lost on acquisition? Do it. Has P company gained or lost on acquisition? And I'll also give P company has paid $62,500 for acquiring those 55,000 shares. 55,000. Okay. Do it. Obviously, I am not going to give the same question. So little bit change I have made. Try this question.
Sir, a loss of 2,500.
Loss of 2,500. So you are saying goodwill.
Yes, sir. Goodwill of 2,500.
Okay. So I want fair value of purchase consideration. Okay. add fair value of NCI, fair value of non-controlling interest. Okay, that amount will be compared with actual value, that is your net asset value of subsidiary company on acquisition date, right? And therefore you will get goodwill or capital reserve. Yes, what about the others? What is the answer?
High Azar ka loss.
27,500.
Okay, okay. Let us see. Let us check the answer. So fair value of purchase consideration. How much are we paying for 55,000 shares?
62,500.
62,500.
Given, it is given in the problem. 62,500. Right. So for 55,000 shares, we are paying. So this is actually paid. 62,500 is actually paid. Okay. And NCI will be for how many shares? What is the remaining number of shares? Yes. Face value per share is $0.8, and that amounts to
45,000.
So number of shares is what? Number of shares is
45.
Total number of shares. Total
12,
number of
1 lakh.
shares. Correct. Total number of shares will be how much? 1 lakh. Total number of shares will be 100,000. Correct. Because 100,000 into 0.8 will give me 80,000, right? 100,000 into 0.8 will give me 80,000. So I can also calculate this as 80,000 divided by 0.8. Correct. So total number of shares is 80,000 divided by 0.8. So that gives me 1 lakh. So NCI will be what? NCI will be 1 lakh minus 55,000 shares.
45,000.
45,000 shares into what value? We'll take it at fair value. Fair value means market value. Market value is 1.2. So 54,000 is payable. Correct. So the total amount will be 62,500 plus 54,000.
1,16,500.
116,500 is payable. Okay, but actual value of the company was 1,20,000. Okay, so for a company whose value is 1,20,000, I am only paying 1,16,500. Okay, the company's value was supposed to be 1,20,000, but I am paying them lower. I am paying them 1,16,500. Okay, so it is a gain for my company, right? For my company, 3,500 gain. So I'll show it as what? Gain will be shown as capital reserve.
Capital reserve, liability side.
Correct, of 3,500 in liabilities. If you understood. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. Sir,
bolo.
how 45,000 shares?
Okay, I'll explain again. Total share capital, total shares, they have not said total shares. They have said total share capital is 80,000. Okay, and face value per share is not $1. If face value per share was $1, number of shares would be what? 80,000 divided by 1, 80,000. यहाँ पे शेयर का वैल्यू कितना है? ओनली 80 सेंट्स है. $0.8 मतलब 80 सेंट्स हो गया ना, 80 पैसे जैसा. मतलब नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स कितना हो गया? 80,000 shares divided by, instead of 1 we'll do 0.8. तो टोटल नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स है 1 लाख. ओके, अपना एस कंपनी के टोटल नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स इज 1 लाख. आउट ऑफ 1 लाख, how much we have acquired? How much we have actually acquired? 55,000 shares. Correct. So out of 1 lakh we have acquired 55,000 shares. सो बचे कितने, एनसीआई के लिए कितने बचे, 1 लाख माइनस 55,000, 45,000 shares we have not acquired. That becomes my NCI, and that 45,000 will be obviously at fair value. Fair value means market value. So this will be 45,000 into 1.2. Is this clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
now the total amount is what? Total amount is 116,500. Okay. So कंपनी जिसका वैल्यू 1,20,000 था उसके लिए अपन ने पे किया सिर्फ 116,500, मतलब अपन ने गेन किया है. So that will be a capital reserve. So nothing in asset side will not show goodwill in asset side. Instead we will show 3,500 as my capital reserve. It is a gain on acquisition. It is a gain on acquisition. Okay. अब ये सब जो एक्चुअल वैल्यू हर प्रॉब्लम में दे रहा हूं मैं 1,20,000. ओके. इफ एक्चुअल वैल्यू इज नॉट गिवन, actual value is not given, okay, how will you calculate net assets of subsidiary company on date of acquisition? Yes, tell me, how will you calculate the net assets of subsidiary company on date of acquisition? So in this problem, in both the problems, I have given you this 1,20,000, right? I have given you this 1,20,000. Okay.
So
The
the
number
difference
of shares into
between date
the
of
market
acquisition
value.
and date of
अच्छा, एक एक करके बताओ.
1 lakh share into market value.
अरे पर नेट असेट्स की बात कर रहा हूं ना मैं. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट नेट असेट्स, और वो भी कौन से दिन का बात कर रहा हूं, ऑन द डेट ऑफ एक्विजिशन. व्हाट इज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ नेट असेट्स, टेल मी. नेट असेट मतलब क्या होता है? हाउ डू यू कैलकुलेट नेट असेट्स ऑफ अ कंपनी? नेट
assets
So
minus
total
The
liabilities.
asset minus liabilities or the
liability.
equity plus
क्या
reserves.
क्या बोल रहे हो, वापस बोलो. आई कुडंट हियर
Net
यू.
assets are net assets is equals to equity plus liability या फिर assets minus liability.
इक्विटी लायबिलिटी, सारे लायबिलिटी लेने के.
Equity plus
Outside
reserves.
liabilities.
Reserves.
Equity plus reserves.
रिजर्व्स.
Reserves.
अच्छा, या फिर और हाँ, व्हाट इज द अदर फॉर्मूला फॉर नेट
Assets
असेट?
minus outside liabilities.
हाँ करेक्ट, मतलब वही हुआ ना, असेट्स माइनस आउटसाइड लायबिलिटीज.
Outside liability.
ओके. नेट असेट्स, असेट देखो, मैं असेट लिख रहा हूँ या नेट असेट लिख रहा हूँ, देख लो. नेट असेट माइनस
Net.
आउटसाइड लायबिलिटीज. तो व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय दिस नेट असेट्स? व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय नेट असेट? तो यहाँ पे ये नेट असेट्स माइनस आउटसाइड लायबिलिटीज इक्विटी प्लस रिजर्व बराबर है. ठीक है, इक्विटी प्लस रिजर्व बराबर है, बट यहाँ पे मैं क्या करूंगा, इक्विटी प्लस रिजर्व में ऐड करूंगा फेयर वैल्यू एडजस्टमेंट ऑन डेट ऑफ एक्विजिशन. नेट एसेट्स नहीं होता ये, नेट एसेट्स नहीं होता ये, फेयर वैल्यू ऑफ असेट्स रहता है. करेक्ट, फेयर वैल्यू ऑफ असेट्स माइनस आउटसाइड लायबिलिटी, दैट विल गिव मी नेट एसेट. सी इफ दिस इज क्लियर. असेट को वैसे के वैसे वैल्यू नहीं करेंगे हम लोग. आई टेक वन एग्जांपल. You need to be very clear with the logic. I'll take one example. Okay. Let us say I am purchasing X company. I am going to purchase X company. Okay. जिसका अभी value of assets है, value of assets before depreciation है 100,000. Okay. Depreciation है उसका 10,000. Okay. And रिवैल्यूएशन में समझ में आता है, रिवैल्यूएशन में समझ में आ रहा है. देयर इज एप्रिसिएशन ऑन बिल्डिंग. एप्रिसिएशन ऑन बिल्डिंग इज लेट अस से अपना है 12,500. करेक्ट. एंड माय आउटसाइड लायबिलिटीज है मेरे लेट अस से 48,000. वैल्यूएशन इज 12,000. ओके. सो नाउ टेल मी अपना नेट असेट्स के लिए कैसे करोगे कैलकुलेशन? हाउ विल यू कैलकुलेट नेट असेट्स?
The value of the asset before depreciation minus the accumulated
अच्छा
depreciation.
मतलब you'll take 1 lakh minus 48,000. Sure.
So not 48,000. So the value of the asset subtracted by the accumulated depreciation.
हाँ सिर्फ depreciation less करोगे या you'll adjust this appreciation also?
We'll adjust the appreciation also.
हाँ correct ना. So you'll adjust both of these ना. You'll adjust both of these. Correct. So 1 lakh minus you'll adjust this 10,000. You'll adjust this 12,500. Correct. And then after adjusting this, after adjusting both of this, whatever comes the value. So कितना value आएगा? So that will be 1 lakh plus 2,500. Correct.
1,02,500 minus
1 lakh
48,000.
2,500 minus 48,000. Correct. So my net assets will be 1 lakh. 1 lakh 2,500 minus 48,000. So 54,500. Or I can also say net assets is equal to equity plus reserves and surplus, because अगर outside liability पता नहीं है मेरे को, okay, plus what I'll do, plus this 2,500. ऐसा भी कर सकता हूँ ना मैं?
हाँ जी.
लॉजिक समझ में आ रहा है क्या नेट एसेट्स का?
फेयर वैल्यू एडजस्टमेंट ऐड हो जाएगा ना?
Correct. So what is this 10 plus 1,200? It is the fair value adjustment. Okay, so net assets can be fair value of assets minus outside liability, or we can also say equity plus reserves plus fair value adjustment on the date of acquisition. Not necessary depreciation आएगा, because acquisition अगर साल के बीच में हुआ है तो depreciation तो आएगा ही नहीं. Depreciation तो year end adjustment है. Correct na? So depreciation is just an example. It is not always going to be depreciation. Okay, so equity plus reserves plus fair value adjustment of assets, on date of acquisition. So that will be the net asset of subsidiary company on the date of acquisition. See if this is clear.
Yes, sir.
Correct. So that you will take over here as 1,20,000. Okay, and that 1,20,000 will be compared with this 116,500, and eventually you will get what is our answer. Is it clear?
Yes.
किसी को कोई भी डाउट है, सिंपल डाउट, सिली डाउट, कैलकुलेशन डाउट, आस्क मी, नो प्रॉब्लम. इफ यू वांट मी टू रिपीट एनीथिंग आई कैन रिपीट इट, नो प्रॉब्लम.
सर एक बार नीचे जाओगे?
Okay, so that's why we are going to use this formula. Net assets equal to what? Equity plus reserve and surplus plus fair value adjustment, plus the fair value adjustment. Okay, done till here?
Yes.
लॉजिक समझ में आ रहा है क्या सब लोगों को? Okay, yes. So let us go back to our format. Okay, so step 1 में तो क्या डिसाइड किया हम लोग ने? What had we decided in step 1? कि which company are my parent, which is my parent company, which is my subsidiary company and which is my associate company. वो तो step 1 हो गया. Okay, step 2 में क्या डिसाइड किया? Step 2 we are deciding, calculating whether we have gained or lost on making the investment in the subsidiary. Okay, how do you calculate that? Gain or loss to the company's fair value of purchase consideration, जितना actual shares के लिए पे किया, add fair value of non controlling interest, जो बचे हुए shares का market value क्या है वो add किया. So that is the value of subsidiary company. उसमें से less क्या करेंगे? Actual value. So instead of actual value, now I'll call it as a net assets of subsidiary on the date of acquisition. Okay, so instead of actual value, we will call it as net value. Okay, so that will give me goodwill or capital reserve. Okay, but the value of subsidiary company at date of acquisition will not be given in the problem. Okay, ACCA will not give you this value, actual value of subsidiary company on the date of acquisition. They will not give you. So this value is called as net assets of subsidiary company at the acquisition date. Okay, at the acquisition date I am saying, I am not saying on balance sheet date. Balance sheet date and acquisition date can be different, and obviously in the problem they will be different. Okay, so this value is called as net assets of subsidiary company at the date of acquisition. So first you have to calculate this in working note 2. Okay, first we will calculate value in working note 2, this net asset value. Once we get the net asset value, then we will calculate the goodwill or capital reserve. Okay, so how to calculate that net asset? See what all we are taking. हम लोगों ने क्या क्या लिया देख लो. So ignore this column right now. At reporting date, ignore this column right now. That will need for the future reference. Okay, so right now I'm going to calculate what? At acquisition. Okay, at acquisition date I'm going to calculate. Okay, so what I said, what is the value of net assets? It is equity, correct, plus reserves plus fair value adjustment. So equity plus reserves बोला तो उसमें क्या क्या आ गया? Equity capital on date of acquisition plus share premium on the date of acquisition. Okay, plus other components of equity on the date of acquisition. मतलब बाकी रिजर्व एंड सरप्लस भी आ गया, जनरल रिजर्व भी आ गया उसमें. ओके, प्लस रिटेन अर्निंग्स भी आ गया. ओके, सो ऑल दीज विल बी व्हाट? इक्विटी प्लस रिजर्व्स. द फर्स्ट फोर विल बी इक्विटी प्लस रिजर्व्स. करेक्ट. उसमें क्या एडजस्ट करना है? फेयर वैल्यू एडजस्टमेंट will be adjusted. That can be positive also, that can be negative also, obviously. Correct. So fair value कम भी हो सकता है, fair value adjustment ज्यादा भी हो सकता है. So we'll adjust that. Okay. Depreciation वो तो year end adjustment है, वो directly reporting date को आएगा. Okay. And PERC करके एक concept होता है, I'll come back to it later. Okay. So provision of unrealized profit इन्वेंट्री पे होता है वो, पर इन्वेंट्री वैल्यूएशन भी हम लोग क्या करेंगे? रिपोर्टिंग डेट पे करेंगे, तो वो यहां पे आएगा. ओके, सो अपना नेट एसेट का वैल्यू क्या हो गया? नेट एसेट का वैल्यू हो गया ऑन एक्विजिशन डेट विल बी दिस अमाउंट. ओके, सो वी आर राइट नाउ वी आर ओनली कंसिडरिंग दिस कॉलम. राइट नाउ वी आर ओनली कंसिडरिंग दिस कॉलम. ओके, तो हम लोग का क्या आ गया? इक्विटी प्लस रिजर्व्स. दीज फोर विल बी योर इक्विटी प्लस रिजर्व्स. करेक्ट, दिस विल बी योर इक्विटी प्लस रिजर्व. इक्विटी प्लस रिजर्व. करेक्ट. उसमें ऐड क्या किया? उसमें ऐड किया फेयर वैल्यू एडजस्टमेंट. फेयर वैल्यू एडजस्टमेंट ऑन द डेट ऑफ एक्विजिशन, इसलिए डेप्रिसिएशन नहीं आ रहा है, बिकॉज डेप्रिसिएशन विल बी ऑन रिपोर्टिंग डेट. ओके. प्रोविजन ऑफ अनरियलाइज्ड प्रॉफिट, वो भी प्रोविजन है. प्रोविजन इज ऑल्सो व्हाट? ऑन रिपोर्टिंग डेट. ओके, सो दिस एंटायर विल गिव मी व्हाट? It will give me this value. So this value is what? This value is net asset of subsidiary company. Correct. This value will be the net asset of subsidiary company on date of acquisition. Okay. ये वैल्यू को कौन से वैल्यू के साथ कंपेयर करना है? This value will be compared with what value? अरे बताओ.
और आपका स्क्रीन होल्ड पर है मेरे लिए. I don't know if it is for everyone.
Yes, sir.
क्या हो गया? स्क्रीन
आपकी hold calculation format is ready. Don't say anything else or something.
I can't hear you guys.
आपकी स्क्रीन होल्ड पर है, हमको कुछ नहीं दिख रहा कि आपने कुछ मार्क किया है कुछ लिखा है स्क्रीन पे. So your voice is cracking.
There's some so is it visible now? Am I audible clearly?
No, sir.
Maybe.
Okay, I'll switch to my I don't know what else I can do.
Join the
Should I leave and join back?
Yes,
So your
sir.
voice is clear
Better.
now. So your
Now it's
voice is
clear?
clear now.
अब
Yes,
सही है.
sir.
हाँ, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट को बोला मैं छोड़ के जाऊंगा मीटिंग तो क्लियर हो गया आवाज. Okay, so let's get back to the this thing PPT. Now it's clear ना? No problem.
Sir, आपने कुछ मार्क किया था क्या?
Hello. Again I can't hear you guys.
आपने कुछ मार्क किया था क्या स्क्रीन पे?
हाँ, screen पे I was marking on the screen on the PPS. I'll do it again. I'll do it again. Yeah. So
हमको
अभी
कुछ नहीं
एकदम
दिखा.
clear है ना? Now loud and clear, everyone.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll come back to this point. I'll come back to this point. Okay. So यहाँ तक तो समझ में आया ना सब लोगों को net assets तक?
हाँ जी.
Okay. So now let us see how to calculate those net assets. I'll mark this again. Okay. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to first calculate net asset of subsidiary company at the date of acquisition. Now the marking is visible.
No, sir.
No, you
Sir, the
can't see what
PPT is not visible.
Sir, we can
PPT
hear
में
you clear.
No, we can hear you clearly, sir. All we can see is this thing,
The
Microsoft
team
Teams का
screen.
layout. We can just see the teams का layout.
तो मैं ना एक काम करता हूँ, I'll stop sharing the screen and I'll try to share it again. Can you see the desktop now?
Load हो रहा है.
यार बहुत स्लो यार ये माइक्रोसॉफ्ट टीम. जूम है क्या सबके पास? इट्स वे बेटर ऑन जूम.
डाउनलोड कर लेंगे, नहीं है तो.
Just let me know if you can see the PPT net asset of subsidiary.
No,
We
sir.
can see page.
Just a blank page.
Sir, only a blank page. Yes, sir, we can see it
Sir,
now.
it's
Hello.
visible. It's
Load हो गया,
visible.
load
हाँ
हो गया.
सर दिख रहा है.
हो गया ना? चलो अच्छा,
हाँ.
ठीक है. So I was saying that how to calculate the net assets of subsidiary. Yeah? So is it because of the marker that I am choosing? Just see if you can see what I'm marking.
Yes,
Sir,
sir,
we
we
can
can
see
see.
it.
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So we'll continue now. So now what I want to do is working note 2. First, I'll calculate the net assets, and that net asset amount I'll compare with the share amount. The amount that I'm paying for the shares. Correct. So how to calculate the net assets? I want to calculate net assets of subsidiary company at acquisition date. Right. So I want to calculate net assets of the subsidiary company. Net assets of subsidiary company on acquisition date. So how will I calculate? Equity plus reserves plus fair value adjustment. Okay, so that will be equity capital plus share premium plus other components of equity, okay, and plus retained earnings. So all these four things will give me what? It will give me equity plus reserves. It will give me equity plus reserves. Okay, in this equity plus reserve, I'll add what? I'll adjust my fair value adjustments. I'll adjust the fair value adjustments, but fair value adjustment I only want on acquisition data. Fair value adjustment I want only for acquisition date. So depreciation is a year end adjustment, so it will go in reporting date. Okay, and perp is called as provision of unrealized profit. It will also go in reporting date. Okay, so in acquisition date I'll only take these three figures: equity plus reserves plus fair value adjustment. Okay, that will give me what? That will give me this amount. This amount is called as your net asset of subsidiary company on the acquisition date. Okay, that is the value of the subsidiary company on the acquisition date. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Okay.
is there any marking after at acquisition?
Sorry.
Acquisition के बाद आपने कुछ मार्क किया था क्या उस कॉलम के बाद?
नहीं, बाकी उस कॉलम को छोड़ के कुछ मार्क नहीं किया मैंने.
ठीक है, ओके, अंडरस्टूड.
ओके, सो नाउ पे अटेंशन ना. तो ये और एक कॉलम बनाया मैंने, और एक कॉलम बनाया सेम अमाउंट्स का विद द सेम कॉन्सेप्ट्स, दैट व्हाट इज द वैल्यू ऑफ द कंपनी एट रिपोर्टिंग डेट. Okay, what is the value of subsidiary company at reporting date? Okay, so that will have additional these two adjustments, depreciation ka adjustment and perp ka adjustment. What is perp? I'll explain in detail later on. Okay, so I'll adjust for these two additional. I'll adjust for these two additionally. Correct. So I'll get your value of the company at the reporting date. Value of the company at the reporting date. Okay. Now इन दोनों का जो difference है, okay, the difference between these two figures, valuation of subsidiary company at reporting date and valuation of subsidiary company at acquisition date. Okay, it will give me post acquisition profits or losses of the company. Acquisition के बाद से reporting date तक, okay, कितने profits और losses आए उसका amount मेरे को मिलेगा इन दोनों के difference से. So when I take the difference of these, I'll get what? I'll get the post acquisition profit or losses. Okay. अभी ये जो पोस्ट एक्विजिशन प्रॉफिट और लॉसेस है, इसका क्या करना है बताओ मेरे को, व्हाट शुड वी डू?
P&L में जाएगा।
Sir, you take the share of that. The parent will take the
Perfect,
percentage of
perfect, correct. So this post
So,
acquisition profit or
NCI.
loss, correct. ये पोस्ट एक्विजिशन प्रॉफिट और लॉस को अपन स्प्लिट करेंगे। कौन से रेशियो में स्प्लिट करेंगे? अपना 60% 40% वाला एग्जांपल में, करेक्ट। सो 60% विल गो टू द पेरेंट कंपनी एंड 40% एनसीआई का शेयर है, वो अपन अपने बैलेंस शीट में दिखाएंगे, पर विल शो इट इन नॉन कंट्रोलिंग इंटरेस्ट, इट विल बी अ लायबिलिटी। सो अपने रिटेन अर्निंग्स में, और कंसोलिडेटेड बैलेंस शीट रिटेन अर्निंग्स में ये सिर्फ 60% का प्रॉफिट दिखेगा, एंड दिस 40%, दिस रिमेनिंग 40% विल गो टू एनसीआई। सो व्हेन यू प्रिपेयर वर्किंग नोट 2, here only you should prepare on acquisition date and also on reporting date. So if this is clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's what I have written. Difference between both the columns is the value addition after acquisition, which will be split between holding company and NCI and adjusted in their respective profits. Okay. सो अपने को चाहिए था सिर्फ ये वाला कॉलम, अपने को सिर्फ फर्स्ट कॉलम चाहिए था, गेन और लॉस के लिए हम लोगों को सिर्फ फर्स्ट कॉलम चाहिए था, बट हम लोग ने सेकंड कॉलम भी निकाल के रखा इसी एडजस्टमेंट में, इसी वर्किंग नोट में। ओके, नाउ दिस अमाउंट, द सर्कल्ड अमाउंट, दिस सर्कल्ड अमाउंट आई विल टेक टू वर्किंग नोट 3, राइट। ये अपन का 55,000 शेयर्स का वैल्यू यहाँ पे लिखा, रिमेनिंग 45,000 शेयर्स का वैल्यू यहाँ पे लिखा। ओके, उसको कंपेयर किससे किया? वर्किंग नोट 2 में के वैल्यू के साथ कंपेयर किया, नेट एसेट्स ऑफ सब्सिडरी कंपनी। तो हमको क्या मिला? विल गेट गुडविल और कैपिटल रिजर्व, विल गेट गुडविल और कैपिटल रिजर्व। ओके, सो जनरली तुम्हारा F7 में इट विल ऑलवेज बी अ गुडविल, इट विल ऑलवेज कम आउट टू बी गुडविल। ओके, एंड सो दैट दे कैन गिव इम्पेयरमेंट ऑफ गुडविल का एडजस्टमेंट। ओके, सो व्हाट इज इम्पेयरमेंट ऑफ गुडविल? What is impairment of goodwill? Anyone?
पता नहीं।
Okay, impairment मतलब क्या? Loss. Impairment means loss. So there can be loss of goodwill also. For example, if there is some issue with the company, ठीक है, कंपनी में कुछ गफला हो गया, तो क्या होगा? गुडविल में प्रॉब्लम आएगा, so there will be loss of goodwill. So that is called as impairment of goodwill. Okay, so your FR adjustment will always be such that you will get a goodwill on acquisition. Capital reserve बहुत कम सम्स में आएगा. Okay, you will get goodwill on acquisition. Why? Because they want to give us additional adjustment of impairment of goodwill. So now tell me, अगर let us say acquisition के बाद गुडविल का लॉस हो गया, एक्विजिशन के बाद गुडविल का लॉस हो गया, ओके, तो वो तो डिडक्ट करेंगे हम लोग, एंड बैलेंस शीट विल बी दिस अमाउंट, गुडविल शोन इन बैलेंस। और ये लॉस का क्या करेंगे अपन? अगेन दिस लॉस इज आफ्टर एक्विजिशन,
सो वो 60:40 में बटेगा।
परफेक्ट। तो ये लॉस को भी एनी प्रॉफिट और लॉस दैट इज आफ्टर एडजस्टमेंट विल बी स्प्लिट अप इन 60% 40%।
बटेगा तो सब में बटेगा।
Okay, so can you see the marking that I have done on the screen?
So it is just the acquisition वाली marking, right?
ये वर्किंग नोट 3 दिख रहा है ना तुमको स्क्रीन पे अभी?
हमको वर्किंग नोट 2 दिख रहा है सर।
No, sir.
अरे यार क्या हो रहा है ये? I have gone to working note 3 also.
We didn't see that slide yet.
Okay, wait. I'll again stop sharing and start sharing. So ये वाला समझा ना सब लोगों को? दो कॉलम क्यों किए? एक्विजिशन डेट के एंड रिपोर्टिंग डेट के, ओके? एंड द डिफरेंस बिटवीन दीज टू कॉलम, Okay, the difference between acquisition date and reporting date, difference between these two column is the profit or loss post acquisition, and that will be split up. That will be split up between holding and NCI. यहां तक सबको समझा है क्या? ओके, सो नाउ नेक्स्ट स्लाइड आ गया क्या सबकी स्क्रीन पे?
The blank screen आ रही है.
आएगा आएगा. Is it visible now?
No, sir.
No.
अभी दिख रहा है क्या?
नहीं
नहीं
sir.
तो एक काम करो, तुम लोगों को मैंने पीपीएस भेजा है ग्रुप पे, ठीक है?
हाँ सब वो
उसमें
खोल के बैठे हैं.
अच्छा ठीक है, तो वर्किंग नोट 3 पे आ जाओ.
सर वो जो डिफरेंस है वो फेयर वैल्यू ऑफ परचेस कंसिडरेशन में लिखा जाएगा ना?
नहीं दिखाता हूँ मैं, एक्सेल खोलता हूँ, एक मिनट. आई विल ओपन अ एक्सेल शीट. एक्सेल शीट दिख रहा है क्या सबको स्क्रीन पे?
सर आपकी स्क्रीन शेयर ही नहीं हो रही है. इट इज ब्लैंक.
अब हो रही है क्या स्क्रीन शेयर?
नो.
थोड़ा बहुत नाउ?
Yes, sir.
ओके,
नहीं मेरे को नहीं आया.
तो मेरे को भी नहीं आ रहा.
हाँ, मुझे भी नहीं आया.
एक्सेल दिख रहा है? एक्सेल नहीं दिख रहा है क्या तुम लोगों को?
एक्सेल दिख रहा है पर सर ब्लर है.
नो
दिख
सर.
रहा है.
सर मेरे को दिख भी नहीं रहा, वो आया ही नहीं मेरे पास.
नहीं सर, मुझे भी नहीं दिख रहा है.
तो मेरे को भी नहीं दिख रहा.
मेरे को तो पूरा नेटवर्क आ रहा है अभी. आई डोंट नो व्हाई, व्हाट्स द प्रॉब्लम. अभी एक्सेल दिख रहा है सब लोगों को या नहीं दिख रहा है?
नहीं सर नहीं दिख रहा.
नो सर.
नहीं सर, नहीं दिख रहा है.
नो सर.
नाउ?
नो.
नहीं सर.
यार कोई स्टॉप प्रेजेंटिंग कर रहा है क्या बीच बीच में? बिकॉज आई एम प्रेजेंटिंग इट एंड देन इट्स ऑटोमेटिकली स्टॉपिंग.
सर कोई प्रेजेंट नहीं कर रहा है. सर आप ही प्रेजेंट कर रहे हो. आपके अलावा कोई
हाँ,
नहीं
मैं
प्रेजेंट कर
प्रेजेंटिंग ऑन कर रहा हूँ ना.
रहा.
तो स्टॉप प्रेजेंटिंग कौन कर रहा है क्या?
नहीं सर वो हम कर नहीं सकते. आप ऑर्गेनाइजर हो. आप हमारा कर सकते हो, हम आपका नहीं कर सकते.
फिर ये बंद क्यों हो रहा है प्रेजेंटेशन? अभी अभी इज इट विजिबल एक्सेल?
नो सर.
Sir, just try rejoining.
Okay, I'll leave and
Okay, sir,
join
it's
again.
visible.
now.
It's visible.
सर इट्स विजिबल.
नहीं आ रहा सर.
वर्किंग नोट 2 लिखा है.
दिख रहा है ना वर्किंग नोट 2?
नहीं सर नहीं दिख रहा.
हमें तो दिख रहा है.
ठीक है, सो अभी दिख रहा है कि सबको? देखो
Yes, sir, दिख रहा है.
Sir, I can't see.
नो सर.
half of you can see, half of you can't see, or what?
Sir, those who can't see, we can just try and refer the
Sir, we
PPT
can
you
see.
sent, na?
हाँ, पीपीटी देख सकते हो तुम वहां पे. अभी मैं वर्किंग
आया.
नोट 2 दिखा रहा हूँ पहले.
Sir,
आया
it's
क्या?
clearly
आया.
visible, sir. It's clearly
अब आया.
visible.
इट्स विजिबल सर. इट्स विजिबल.
Okay, so for those who can't see ना, take out the slide of working note 2. ठीक है, वहां पे हम लोग ने क्या किया है? at acquisition date कुछ किया है, right? at acquisition date. Okay, and second column is on
At reporting.
reporting date. So I'll say on balance sheet date, correct? On balance sheet date, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take equity, I'm going to take share premium, Okay, then I'll going to take other components of equity and I am going to take retained earnings. Correct. So this will be visible over here. Correct. And इसका balance reporting date पे थोड़ा change भी हो सकता है. It can change reporting date. Okay. Then fair value adjustments. This can be here. This can be here also. Okay. उसका भी amounts change हो सकता है. Okay. So then depreciation will be figure. It will not be applicable over here because depreciation is only on balance sheet date. So it will appear only in second column. And then your perp. What is perp? I'll explain later. It will also be not applicable over here because it is a provision. Provision only on also only on balance sheet date. Okay. So finally I'll get what? This column and this column. Correct. So this will be net assets of subsidiary company on acquisition date, the total of X. Okay. And total of Y will be net asset of subsidiary on the reporting date. यहां तक क्लियर हो गया क्या सबको?
सर इफ यू हैव रिवैल्यूएशन सरप्लस ना देन वो जो फेयर वैल्यू एडजस्टमेंट है वो हम अलग से क्यों व्हाई आर वी शोइंग वी कैन जस्ट show it along with the revaluation surplus.
Correct. If you have revaluation surplus, you can show it over here. But sometimes what happens? Revaluation surplus account हम लोग क्या करते हैं? End of the balance sheet में हम लोग उसको बनाएंगे. Okay. Company waits in real life also. Company what does it do? It just sees what is the revaluation surplus. ठीक है? And सारा उसका effect जो है वो हम लोग देंगे balance sheet date पे. Okay, so just not to miss out due to the accountants calculations, we are going to see अगर revaluation surplus यहाँ पे नहीं लिया है तो we'll take it under fair value adjustment.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So now I got net assets of subsidiary company. Correct. This is on acquisition date. This is on acquisition date, and this is on balance sheet date. Correct. Okay. So now pay attention, huh? Now I'll come to working note 3 first. Okay. Working note 3 में हम लोग को क्या करना है? हम लोग को निकालना है gain or loss due to acquisition. I have to calculate gain or loss due to acquisition. Okay. Means I'm going to calculate that goodwill or capital reserve. Okay. How do we do that? We'll start with fair value of purchase consideration. अपन ने एग्जांपल लिए थे न्यूमेरिकल एग्जांपल. ओके, सो दैट इज फॉर व्हाट योर 60% शेयर्स के लिए जो वैल्यू पे करते हैं वो. ओके, देन विल ऐड व्हाट? विल ऐड एनसीआई, फेयर वैल्यू ऑफ एनसीआई. विल ऐड फेयर वैल्यू ऑफ एनसीआई. व्हाट इज दैट? व्हाट वी पे फॉर दैट रिमेनिंग 40% शेयर्स, उसके लिए जो पे करते दैट. सो दैट गिव्स मी द टोटल पेएबल अमाउंट. राइट, दैट गिव्स मी द टोटल पेएबल अमाउंट. उसमें से लेस क्या करेंगे आप? हम less net assets of subsidiary company on acquisition date, right? Acquisition date, and that will be what? That will be your this amount, net asset वाला X वाला amount. समझा क्या?
सर लेस वाला समझ नहीं आया.
आपने ये वर्किंग नोट 2 क्यों बनाया है? Why have we made working note 2? Because we want to calculate the net assets of subsidiary company on acquisition date.
Yes.
Correct. So वो वैल्यू कहां से मिलेगा? ये सब अपन एडजस्ट करेंगे तो हमको मिलेगा net assets of subsidiary company. That is the value of subsidiary company on acquisition date. Correct.
On acquisition date, हाँ.
Correct. That will deduct ना, जो अपन एक्सेल में न्यूमेरिकल्स में देखे थे हम लोग ने.
हाँ, समझ गया.
Correct. So that will be your net assets of subsidiary on acquisition date. So that will give me what? That will give me either goodwill or capital reserve.
Yes, sir.
That will give me my goodwill or capital reserve. That will be my gain or loss. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. अभी ये जो दूसरा कॉलम निकाला है, ओके, सो पहला कॉलम तो कहां पे रिकॉर्ड किया समझ में आया तुम लोगों को? सो द फर्स्ट कॉलम we took this amount and we have adjusted against the total payable amount. Okay, we have took this amount and adjusted against the total payable amount. Now we'll see why we have calculated the second column. Why we have calculated the second column. Okay, so the difference between x and y. Okay, the difference between x and y is what? Is nothing but the post acquisition profit or loss. It is nothing but the post acquisition profit or loss. It is after acquisition. So if it is after acquisition, it will be split between
the ratio
between, correct, parent and NCI. Parent and NCI in what ratio? In ratio of 60:40. Okay, it will not be taken in working note 3. It will not be taken in working note 3. 60% will go to reserves of parent company, correct, and 40% will go to what? Will go to NCI. Okay,
understood.
yes, everyone else understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now when we prepare working note 3, we don't need this Y column and we don't need this also. Okay, we just need to focus what is the amount we pay for our 60% shares, what is the amount that we pay for our 40% shares, minus what is the amount of the company on acquisition date that we have already calculated in the first column. That will give me gain or loss. Okay, so generally in F7 it will be goodwill. It will be goodwill. It will be a loss. It will be a goodwill. Why they are going to give goodwill? Because they want to also give impairment of goodwill. They want to also give you the adjustment of impairment of goodwill. Okay, so this is goodwill on acquisition. This is goodwill on acquisition, correct? Less impairment of goodwill. So therefore I'll get what? Goodwill to be recorded in the balance sheet. That will give me goodwill to be recorded in the balance sheet. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay, but now pay attention. This impairment of goodwill that we have deducted, what will happen about that impairment? This impairment is a loss, correct?
It is a
impairment is
it
loss
will
after
60-40 हो जाएगा.
Correct. This impairment is a loss after acquisition, na? This impairment is a loss after acquisition. So again split in ratio of 60:40. मतलब एक्विजिशन के बाद कोई भी लॉस आने दो या कोई भी प्रॉफिट आने दो, एनी प्रॉफिट और लॉस आफ्टर एक्विजिशन डेट, ओके, आफ्टर एक्विजिशन विल बी स्प्लिट इन द रेशियो ऑफ 60:40. ओके,
Yes sir.
अगेन 60% कहां पे जाएगा बताओ मेरे को?
Parent company.
Correct, will go to reserves of parent company, correct, and 40% will go where? 40% will go to
Subsidiary.
NCI. It will go to NCI.
अच्छा हाँ sorry NCI. Subsidiary NCI.
ओके, क्लियर? वर्किंग नोट 2 and 3 क्या करना है, समझ में आया क्या सब लोगों को?
Yes sir.
So can you once again explain the impairment part?
हाँ, impairment I'll explain again. तो गुडविल तक तो अपन ने सीखा था कैसे करना है. We had taken numerical calculations, correct? Till goodwill we had taken the numerical calculation. Okay.
Yes, sir.
After and this goodwill we were supposed to record in the balance sheet. Okay, this goodwill on acquisition we were supposed to record in the balance sheet, but they can say there is impairment of goodwill at 10%. तो let us say goodwill का amount आ गया 50,000. Okay, goodwill amount is 50,000 and they say impairment of goodwill is 10%. So that is 5,000 is the impairment of goodwill. Okay, so balance sheet में goodwill लिखेंगे हम लोग 45,000, right? 50,000 minus 5,000, 45,000 will be the goodwill written in the balance sheet. Okay, पर ये 5,000 जो less किया है, okay, उसको क्या करना पड़ेगा? This is a loss. So this loss will be split between 60% and 40%. 60% will be adjusted in reserves of parent company. लॉस है तो डिडक्ट करेंगे, जस्ट लाइक डेप्रिसिएशन. डेप्रिसिएशन के दो इफेक्ट क्या है? फर्स्ट इफेक्ट इज डिडक्ट फ्रॉम असेट एंड सेकंड इफेक्ट इज पुट इट इन P&L अकाउंट. करेक्ट. सो वैसे ही किया ना अपन ने, 5,000 का लॉस डिडक्ट किया. ओके. ये 5,000 का लॉस कहां पे डालेंगे? 60% ऑफ दैट 5,000 विल गो टू रिजर्व्स ऑफ पेरेंट कंपनी, डिडक्ट करेंगे, एंड 40% करेंगे डिडक्ट एनसीआई से.
ठीक है. ओके सर.
समझ में आ गया यहां तक अभी?
यस सर.
चलो. सो अभी फाइनली हम लोगों को क्या मिला है? गेन और लॉस ड्यू टू एक्विजिशन मिला, गुडविल या कैपिटल रिजर्व मिला हम लोगों को. डन?
Yes, sir.
So one more doubt. For calculating the profits, the share capital and the share premium amount should be same for date of acquisition and date of reporting, right?
For which amount? Working note 2 or 3?
Working note 3, like to calculate the profits and be distributed between the goodwill and the NCI. This share capital and share premium amount should be same for date of acquisition and date of reporting.
No, it can be different also, na? It can be different also. So that's why I written X and Y, na? At acquisition date, equity can be so and so, and your this thing on balance sheet date, equity can be different. Okay. Share premium can be different. OCE can be different. अगर ये सब सेम है, if both these column are same, pay attention ना, if both these columns are exactly same, मेरा पोस्ट एक्विजिशन प्रॉफिट और लॉस आएगा ही नहीं ना,
जीरो हो जाएगा.
करेक्ट. और it can also be these are all same. Okay, let us say these are same. ठीक है, बट चेंज सिर्फ इन तीनों में है, वैसा भी हो सकता है. Okay, so then again it will be what? The difference will be post acquisition है तो डायरेक्टली 60-40 में स्प्लिट करना.
Okay sir.
Done?
Yes, sir.
Now see, whatever is the post acquisition, what am I saying? पोस्ट एक्विजिशन का जो भी एडजस्टमेंट है वो जाएगा 40% एनसीआई को एंड 60% पेरेंट कंपनी को. सो नेक्स्ट 2 वर्किंग नोट्स वही करेंगे अपन. सो वर्किंग नोट 4 विल बी व्हाट? एनसीआई, करेक्ट, एंड वर्किंग नोट 5 विल बी व्हाट? रिजर्व एंड सरप्लस. रिजर्व्स ऑफ द पेरेंट, करेक्ट, रिजर्व्स ऑफ द पेरेंट. बट उसमें हम लोग ऐड क्या करेंगे? प्लस और माइनस एडजस्टमेंट्स, करेक्ट, ऐड और लेस एडजस्टमेंट्स. सो आई विल कॉल इट एज अ ग्रुप रिजर्व. इज दिस क्लियर टू एवरीवन?
सर आपने स्क्रीन में लिखा है या फिर कुछ किया है क्या?
एक्सेल दिख रहा है क्या सब लोगों को अभी? वर्किंग नोट 4 एनसीआई एंड वर्किंग नोट 5
एक्सेल लिख रहा है, मगर दिस इम्पेयरमेंट वर्किंग नोट 3 पे अटका हुआ है.
वर्किंग नोट 4 एंड 5 नहीं विजिबल नहीं है क्या?
नो सर.
No, sir.
सर कल से जूम पे आ जाए.
हाँ, कल से जूम पे करेंगे अपन, बिकॉज आई हैव नेवर एक्सपीरियंस दिस सच प्रॉब्लम. मे बी द नंबर ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स बहुत हाई है इसलिए हो रहा है क्या ऐसा?
नहीं सर.
सर बट हर क्लासेस में ऐसे ही होता है सर, बीकॉम के भी तो ऐसे ही होते हैं.
अच्छा, अभी दिख रहा है क्या वर्किंग नोट 4 एंड 5?
हाँ सर बिल्कुल.
Yes, sir.
Yes sir.
आई थिंक वो स्क्रीन बार बार ये शेयर करके ये किया ना तो हो रहा है वो. ओके, सो नाउ एनीथिंग विच इज पोस्ट एक्विजिशन गोज वेयर? गोज आइदर इन एनसीआई और इन रिजर्व, राइट? सो जो भी 40% ऑफ एडजस्टमेंट्स है, 40% of adjustment goes in NCI, correct, and 60% of the adjustments will go in group reserves. Okay, so now pay attention. NCI को एडजस्टमेंट के अलावा और कुछ NCI को पेबल है क्या हम लोग? अपार्ट फ्रॉम एडजस्टमेंट, इज देयर एनी अमाउंट which we are payable to NCI?
Sir, profits.
हाँ, प्रॉफिट्स तो करेंगे ना, 40% ऑफ प्रॉफिट्स करेंगे अपन. But apart from that, is there any amount which we are payable to NCI?
Unrealized profit.
fair value.
हाँ करेक्ट, समवन
पर-
सेड फेयर वैल्यू। ये वाला
Okay.
वैल्यू देखो वर्किंग नोट 3 में
Fair
ये
value
जो
of NCI.
40% शेयर्स को मार्केट वैल्यू से मल्टीप्लाई किया वो भी तो पेएबल है ना।
Yes, sir.
बिल्कुल
ओके सो अपना रिमेनिंग शेयर्स जो था, रिमेनिंग शेयर्स इनटू मार्केट वैल्यू, ये भी तो पेएबल था। तो यहां से स्टार्ट करेंगे, एनसीआई विल बी स्टार्टेड विद दिस एडजस्टमेंट एंड देन ऐड और लेस योर 40%
Adjustment.
of profits or losses. Profits. So I'll just say add 40% of profits, correct, and less 40% of any losses. So that will give me what? That will give me final NCI amount, which will be shown in liabilities, Okay, see if this is clear. Working note 4 NCI.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
So we have started this NCI adjustment with our working note 2 का figure, sorry working note 3 का figure, ये वाला fair value of NCI का figure. We have started with that, okay, and then we'll add or less our profits or losses. Both are post acquisition, huh? ये भी post acquisition है, ये भी post acquisition. Okay, now similarly रिजर्व्स, ग्रुप रिजर्व्स में हम लोग स्टार्ट कहां से करेंगे? रिजर्व्स ऑफ parent company from the balance sheet, correct. Again the same thing, what will we add 40% of profits, sorry not 40%, add 60% of profits
60%.
and less 60% of losses, करेक्ट। वी पोस्ट एक्विजिशन पे हम लोग करेंगे,
तो पर्क नहीं आएगा बीच में?
आएगा ना, पर भी यही हुआ ना, पर भी क्या हो गया, पर्प इज अ प्रोविजन ऑफ अनरियलाइज्ड प्रॉफिट, तो पर्प का भी क्या करेंगे, प्रॉफिट्स का 60% और लॉसेस का सॉरी प्रॉफिट्स एंड लॉसेस दोनों का 60-40 में हम लोग को बाइफर्केट। तो कोई भी एडजस्ट होने दो, वेदर इट बी डेप्रिसिएशन ऑफ असेट्स, let it be your impairment of goodwill, let it be your perp, okay, any adjustment that has taken place after acquisition date, ठीक है, any adjustment that takes place after adjustment date उसका डायरेक्टली करो 40-60, 40% डाल दो एनसीआई में, 60% डाल दो अपना वर्किंग नोट 5 रिजर्व्स ऑफ पेरेंट कंपनी।
ठीक है, simultaneously
we can do that simultaneously, okay, done। एंड देखो जो एडजस्टमेंट है उसका सेकंड इफेक्ट तो पता है, सो फॉर एग्जांपल फर्स्ट इफेक्ट मैंने क्या किया, डेप्रिसिएशन, ओके, लेट अस से डेप्रिसिएशन है मेरा 10,000, डेप्रिसिएशन ऑन प्लांट एंड मशीनरी, डेप्रिसिएशन है $10,000, ओके, एंड दिस डेप्रिसिएशन इज ऑन रिपोर्टिंग डेट ऑन द बैलेंस शीट डेट, सो ऑब्वियसली आफ्टर एक्विजिशन आ गया। तो अब ये 10,000 का मेरे को बताओ, ये 10,000 का अमाउंट्स कहां कहां, what is the first effect of this 10,000 and what is the second effect of this 10,000?
So deduct from the non-current asset and show it in the accumulated depreciation.
Correct. Deduct, first effect तो है deduct from plant and machinery, and यहाँ पे consolidation में second effect कहाँ पे जाएगा बताओ? Let us go to this working note 2 में क्या क्या अपन ने, on balance sheet date, fair value adjustment, depreciation and perp, तो यहाँ पे depreciation डाल दिया ना हम लोग ने, करेक्ट। सो डेप्रिसिएशन एंड पर्प यहाँ पे एडजस्ट हो गए, मतलब वो क्या हो गए, दैट हैज बीन adjusted in your post acquisition profits or losses.
Yes.
Okay. एंड वो अमाउंट स्प्लिट करके हम लोग इसमें डालने वाले हैं, हम लोग इसमें एनसीआई में एंड रिजर्व्स में डालने ही वाले हम लोग. ओके, सो दैट विल कम अंडर एनसीआई एंड रिजर्व्स. ओके, सो सेकंड इफेक्ट विल गो अंडर व्हाट? विल गो अंडर वर्किंग नोट.
Working
It will
note.
go under working note 2. Depreciation. Okay.
तो सर इन शॉर्ट हमारे सेकंड, थर्ड, फोर्थ और फिफ्थ जो वर्किंग नोट बनेंगे वो साइमल्टेनियसली बनेंगे.
Correct. Second, third, fourth, fifth working note we will prepare simultaneously. Okay. This is just the basics. हाँ, ये इसका न्यूमेरिकल जब लूंगा मैं तो और भी क्लियर होगा. Okay. This is just the format that I am explaining. I am explaining the logic कि ऐसा क्यों करना है. When I take the numericals, it will be even. You will understand it even better.
सर ये वाली फाइल हमको भेज देना सेव करके.
कौन सी? एक्सेल वाली क्या?
हाँ, एक्सेल वाली.
ओके, ठीक है. अंडरस्टूड. तो ये डेप्रिसिएशन हटा देते हैं. डेप्रिसिएशन बाद में आई विल कम टू इट. व्हाट इज डेप्रिसिएशन? डन टिल हियर?
यस सर.
ओके,
आज के लिए काफी है.
हाँ, एक मिनट, एक लास्ट सिर्फ बोलता हूँ. सो नाउ व्हेन वी प्रिपेयर बैलेंस शीट कंसोलिडेटेड, ठीक है, नाउ व्हेन वी विल प्रिपेयर कंसोलिडेटेड बैलेंस शीट. सो नाउ लेट मी ओपन आवर प्रॉब्लम. ओके, अभी पीपीटी दिख रहा है क्या स्क्रीन पे?
हाँ जी.
एवरीवन कैन सी दिस बोरो हाई एंड स्ट्रीट वाला एग्जांपल?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Now
sir.
I'll try to mark it. So now let us not focus on street. ठीक है, street को cancel out किया दिख रहा है क्या?
दिख रहा है.
Okay. So let us not focus on street है ना. So now let us see. अभी मेरे को consolidated balance sheet बनाने का है. तो balance sheet में क्या क्या आएगा? Let us see. Okay. ये 1 लाख आएगा, ये 80,000 भी आएगा. No problem. This 1 lakh will appear, this 80,000 will appear. Okay. This investment will not appear. This 1,21,000 wala investment will not appear. Tell me why?
It will come in the account
because
of
goodwill appears in its
its
place.
associate company.
Perfect. Goodwill या capital reserve में ले लिया अपन ने वो. We have taken that 1,21,000 when we calculated goodwill or capital reserve. Correct? So we are ignoring that 1,21,000. ये इन्वेंट्री आएगा, ये भी इन्वेंट्री आएगा. पूरा लेंगे, बरो का भी पूरा लेंगे, हाई का भी पूरा लेंगे. यहाँ पे 60-40 स्प्लिट मत करो. Only profits and losses will be 60-40 split. Assets and liabilities will appear entirely. ठीक है ना. ये भी रिसीवेबल 70 आएगा, ये रिसीवेबल भी 10,000 आएगा. नो प्रॉब्लम. ये 47 भी पूरा आएगा, ये 25,000 भी पूरा आएगा. नो प्रॉब्लम. हाँ. नाउ कम्स द इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट. इक्विटी कैपिटल ये पूरा लेंगे अपन. नो प्रॉब्लम. दिस इक्विटी कैपिटल एंटायरली विल टेक. शुड वी टेक दिस 75,000?
No, sir. Only parent company.
सर 45 आएगा उसमें से ना?
नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं आएगा क्योंकि 45,000 अपन ने ऑलरेडी रिकॉर्ड किया है.
अरे हाँ, समझ गए.
वर्किंग नोट 3 में क्या किया? ये 75,000 शेयर्स को स्प्लिट किया ना अपन ने. 45,000 शेयर्स एंड 30,000 शेयर्स. ये 75,000 शेयर्स जो थे टोटल, इसको मैंने स्प्लिट किया है एंड आई हैव पुट इट इन वर्किंग नोट 3 ना. फेयर वैल्यू ऑफ योर परचेज कंसिडरेशन एंड एनसीआई. 60% वाले शेयर्स एंड 40% वाले शेयर्स. तो ये मैं नहीं दिखाऊंगा अभी. इज इट क्लियर?
यस सर, क्रिस्टल क्लियर.
ना रिटेन अर्निंग दिखाऊंगा या नहीं दिखाऊंगा?
दिखाओगे?
ये भी नहीं दिखाऊंगा. हाँ, करेक्ट. ये दोनों नहीं दिखाऊंगा. करेक्ट. इंस्टेड ऑफ दैट आई विल राइट ग्रुप रिजर्व्स. ग्रुप रिजर्व. करेक्ट ना?
अच्छा, उसका एडजस्टमेंट उधर होगा. वर्किंग नोट 5.
सो आई विल राइट दिस ग्रुप रिजर्व ओवर हियर. समझा क्या?
समझा.
ओके. सो रिटेन अर्निंग भी नहीं आएगा, अदर कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ इक्विटी भी नहीं आएगा.
नहीं
ओके.
आएगा.
ये अदर लायबिलिटीज जो पेएबल है, ये 50,000 आएगा, ये 15,000 भी आएगा. ओके. नाउ ये सब हो गया. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस two more things will come. What are those? Apart from all of this,
सर एनसीआई
बराबर एनसीआई
NCI.
कहाँ पे दिखाओगे? लायबिलिटी में दिखाओगे एनसीआई. एनसीआई विल बी शोन इन लायबिलिटी, करेक्ट. एंड फिर गुडविल आएगा असेट में. असेट में एडिशनल तुम लोग डालोगे गुडविल. अगर कैपिटल रिजर्व रहेगा तो वो रिजर्व में ही ऐड हो जाएगा एनीवे.
वो ग्रुप रिजर्व में ऐड करके दिखा देंगे ना?
नहीं, अलग से दिखाएंगे. कैपिटल रिजर्व विल बी शोन सेपरेटली.
ओके,
समझ में आ गया पूरा कंसेप्ट? बेसिक
हाँ।
कॉन्सेप्ट समझ में आ गया क्या सब लोगों को?
हाँ जी.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's why this entire logic is important. Okay, so now अभी ये तो होल्डिंग और सब्सिडियरी का हो गया. Okay, now एसोसिएट का मैंने सिखाया नहीं है, फिर भी तुम लोग बताओ मेरे को. एसोसिएट का मैंने कुछ भी नहीं सिखाया तुम लोगों को. यू गाइस टेल मी, ये 60,000 आएगा क्या कंपनी का? कैन यू सी दिस?
No, sir.
No, sir. No, sir.
No, sir.
सर इन्वेस्टमेंट आएगा.
इम्पेयरमेंट तो गुडविल में एडजस्ट किया ना मैंने. इम्पेयरमेंट आई हैव एडजस्टेड इन द गुडविल. एंड
इन्वेस्टमेंट
इम्पेयरमेंट का सेकंड इफेक्ट आई हैव इन्वेस्टमेंट. ओके, इन्वेस्टमेंट. ओके, सो स्ट्रीट कंपनी का अभी बात करते हैं. स्ट्रीट कंपनी की बात करते हैं. सो दिस इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑफ 1,20,000 ऑफ बोरो इज आल्सो नॉट विजिबल बिकॉज वो तो अपन ने एडजस्ट किया है. करेक्ट. दैट इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑफ 1,21,000 वी हैव एडजस्टेड व्हाइल पेइंग फॉर परचेज कंसीडरेशन ना. So that will not come. Okay, ठीक. Now let us talk about street company. I have not yet taught you this. I have not yet taught you this. तो 60,000 को मैंने क्रॉस मार्क किया है, वो दिख रहा है क्या?
नहीं सर, अभी वो दिख रहा है, क्या कहते हैं, मीटिंग्स का लेआउट दिख रहा है. हाँ, अब दिखा. हाँ.
ओके.
सर शेयर स्क्रीन बंद हो गई.
स्ट्रीट बंद हो गया क्या शेयर स्क्रीन? ओके. नाउ इज इट विजिबल स्ट्रीट कंपनी?
लोडिंग. विजिबल.
ओके,
Yes, sir.
60,000 को क्रॉस मार्क किया, वो भी दिख रहा है सबको?
यस सर, दिख रहा है सर.
Okay, ठीक. So now when I prepare consolidation of all three companies, यहाँ पे देखो 60,000 तो बैलेंस शीट में नहीं आएगा बिकॉज इट इज एसोसिएट का कंसोलिडेशन नहीं करते. 15,000 का इन्वेंट्री भी बैलेंस शीट में नहीं आएगा. 2,000 का रिसीवेबल्स भी बैलेंस शीट में नहीं आएगा. एंड दिस कैश ऑफ 3,000 विल आल्सो नॉट अपीयर इन बैलेंस. करेक्ट. नाउ इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल भी नहीं आएगा. एसोसिएट का इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल भी नहीं आएगा बैलेंस शीट में. ओके, बिकॉज उसमें जितना इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है दैट आई विल शो एज इन्वेस्टमेंट ओवर हियर. एसोसिएट में जितना इन्वेस्ट किया है मैंने, ओके, सो इन्वेस्टमेंट इन एसोसिएट आई विल शो इट एज माय बैलेंस शीट asset side. Correct. Investment in street. Okay, and that investment in street will be what? Only 30% of that amount. So ये 35,000 नहीं दिखाऊंगा, उसकी जगह में क्या करूंगा? इन्वेस्टमेंट इन स्ट्रीट कंपनी दिखाऊंगा. ओके, नाउ ये 40,000 आएगा क्या?
हाँ, शेयर इन रिटेड अर्निंग्स आएगा.
हाँ, करेक्ट. 40,000 नहीं आएगा, बट 30% ऑफ 40,000 दिखाएंगे हम लोग. 30% ऑफ 40,000 इन्वेस्टमेंट का ही रिटर्न्स करके दिखाएंगे. इन्वेस्टमेंट का ही रिटर्न्स करके दिखाएंगे. ओके, एंड ये 5,000 का लायबिलिटी भी नहीं आएगा.
5,000 का लायबिलिटी नहीं आएगा ना?
नहीं आएगा क्योंकि एसोसिएट कंपनी का असेट्स और लायबिलिटी आता ही नहीं है. सो दैट विल नॉट.
सिर्फ हमारा रिटर्न आएगा बस.
करेक्ट. इन्वेस्टमेंट, सो एसोसिएट में कितना इन्वेस्टमेंट किया और एसोसिएट के रिटेन अर्निंग्स में से कितना परसेंटेज इन्वेस्टमेंट, कितना परसेंटेज प्रॉफिट्स हम लोग को मिला, बस उतना ही हम लोग दिखाएंगे. सो इन्वेस्टमेंट इन एसोसिएट एंड द रिटर्न जनरेटेड ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट इन एसोसिएट, that is the only thing I'll show in asset side of street company. That's it. Okay, clear? Is this clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, So this is just the basic. This is just the basic. Now in the next lecture, we'll start with your actual numerical calculation. Okay. So now do one thing, go through the PPS again, the PPS that I have shared on the group. Okay. Go through it again. Okay. Whenever you get time. And फिर देख लो उसमें जो जो मैंने बताया वो समझ में आ रहा है या नहीं. Okay. So now just last 2 minutes guys, last 2 minutes. So अभी PPS दिख रहा है क्या, मैं जो आगे करते जा रहा हूँ वो?
नहीं, हाँ दिख रहा है सर.
ओके. सो वर्किंग नोट 2 समझ में आया सब लोगों को? व्हाट वी आर डूइंग इन वर्किंग नोट 2?
शेयर स्क्रीन बंद हो गई.
Okay, now is it visible?
हाँ सर, विजिबल.
Okay, so working note 2 is clear, net assets of subsidiary. Okay, उसके बाद निकाला वर्किंग नोट 3. ओके, एंड वर्किंग नोट 2 का फिगर जो है वो यहाँ पे लिया वर्किंग नोट 3 में, यहाँ पे ले लिया हम लोग ने वर्किंग नोट 3 में ले लिया. करेक्ट. देन पर्प आई विल एक्सप्लेन इन द नेक्स्ट लेक्चर. नाउ पर्प के लिए टाइम लगेगा. So working note 4 will be NCI. Okay. Working note 5 will be your group reserves. And ये working note 6 दिख रहा है क्या स्क्रीन पे? Correct. This will be your investment in associate.
बजट के लिए होगा.
Correct. Investment in associate will be what? How much you are investing in associate
कॉस्ट
and how much कॉस्ट, मतलब कितना इन्वेस्टमेंट में कितना तुम लोग ने इन्वेस्ट किया ना, एसोसिएट में कितना इन्वेस्ट किया, दैट विल बी योर कॉस्ट.
30% मतलब वही ना.
हाँ. सो जितना भी एसोसिएट में 30% का अमाउंट, ओके, वी हैव इन्वेस्टेड 30% इन एसोसिएट, उसका जितना भी अमाउंट होता है, सो इन आवर प्रॉब्लम 21,000. करेक्ट. सो एसोसिएट में जितना इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है उसका अमाउंट एंड एडजस्ट फॉर योर इंक्रीज और डिक्रीज इन रिटेन अर्निंग्स.
ओके, और नेट में ऐड कर देंगे ओवरऑल.
करेक्ट. नेट में उसको ऐड कर देंगे. Okay, so that will give me what? That will give me investment in associate, that will show in asset side. Okay. And then you will prepare a
Sir, I
consolidate.
had a question.
हाँ बोलो बोलो.
Sir, in the paper, all questions will be based on वो fair value method क्या? Because sir आपके एक slide में वो non-controlling interest का लिखा है कि you can also calculate it as a proportion
Correct.
to
So
the net assets.
today I am only explaining fair value because majority of problems are on fair value. ठीक है? But apart from fair value also there is one more method that we'll do it later. Okay? तो पहले basic sum हम लोग fair value adjustment से ही करेंगे. एंड देन जो अलग सम्स है वो मैं अलग से तुमको एक्सप्लेन करूंगा. ओनली वन एडजस्टमेंट विल बी डिफरेंट इन दैट क्वेश्चन.
ओके सर.
ओके ना, ठीक. एंड देन कम्स योर कंसोलिडेटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. उसमें भी हम लोग ने देखा क्या क्या आएगा. करेक्ट. So now go through this PPS. Okay, go through this entire PPS again today, tomorrow, whenever it is possible. So before our next lecture, okay, before our next lecture, you should be familiar with your format. So when I start solving the question, okay, you should know what I am talking about. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
So
So
when is
that's
the next
covered.
lecture?
Next lecture अभी next Monday Tuesday को ना.